The book of Proverbs, verse 14. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. Okay, so, hi everybody, this is Christian RPG Gamers. So I was just playing some of this My Hero Academia. I might just use it as some background footage. I don't know, we'll try something different. Okay. So I don't know if I might be a little bit late to the party if I want to talk about this. So I don't have too much time, but I'll try to make this video I think around maybe like 20 minutes or so. It might be 30 minutes, but we'll see what happens. Oh yeah, I'm trying out some new little things. Like I had this little little circle thing on the side. You know, I found this pretty looking bard. I think I used it as a picture on a thumbnail like a month ago or something. So I might try that out. Because, you know, I do respect women at the end of the day, too. And, you know, this isn't just like a male channel. I mean, granted, probably most people are men, but, you know, it is what it is. So I guess for today's video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the new the new Dungeons and Dragons book that came out. Or like the whole, you know, the new editions. And I just wanted to give some of my thoughts about it. And, you know, or some of my hopes for, you know, the franchise going forward. Alright, okay, so the first thing I'll say is, I personally have not actually bought this book yet. I haven't done a thorough, like, deep dive in it. Now, okay, so I'll lay some framework down, right? So again, I try not to talk about myself too much on the channel. But I do talk about myself, I just do it more from, like, an intellectual point of view, right? Because I don't want to be a super narcissistic, but so I was playing Dungeons and Dragons yesterday, on this campaign I was joining in, and several of the people, they bought the new book. Now, it's not technically supposed to be considered 6th edition. Like, no, I know that it would call like 5e, right? There's 5e. This book series, it's like some kind of a. I mean, it's hard to even say what exactly it's even supposed to be. It's like some kind of a standalone, like, book genre series of the new Dungeons and Dragons. It's not 6th edition. It's just like a different book series. It's like a fun little cute book series you can buy. I think, to be honest, it feels like a cash grab. I mean, they are like fully, you know, they are a hardcover back. They do have pictures, and it is like well made, right? But it just feels like they touched up the last edition a bit, and they kind of manipulated it a little bit. And honestly, I felt like they removed a bunch of stuff from the past editions. And it's like, and they have like what? They have like 3 or 4 books. I'm sorry, you know, I'm drinking this lemonade, and I have this lemonade sitting next to me. I don't want to be too loud, right? But so yeah, like a couple of the people there. I don't know if I'm gonna say they're my friends, but like, I mean, I do know them a bit now. Like, one of the guys, he sat next to me, to my left, and I think he bought like 3 of the D&D books. And I think he paid like, okay, now again, different people have different money, right? I think he spent like, I think he spent $180. And there was another guy on the table. He bought, I think he bought the handbook, and I don't know, I have my Game Master, and there's a few other players there. I don't know if the Game Master I'm currently with actually has that new book yet. I mean, he's been playing 5th edition. Okay. Whew. Let me try to say it again. Saying these names are very tricky. Like 5e, right? He still is playing 5th edition. He hasn't played this new one. Honestly, I think 5e is a pretty solid book, though. So like the new books, I think they have the player's handbook. It has some kind of a game master's guide, and it also has a monster manual. And I think they might have another book out too, but it's hard to keep track exactly. So okay. Now I do like buying stuff and collecting things, but to be real with somebody, like, I don't know if I'd ever actually really use a book like this. And like, to be real, I would have, okay, let me try to calm down a little bit, right? Okay. Oh, okay. I would just have mountains of crap just stored up in my house, and I wouldn't know what to do with it. So it's like I try not to buy and spend and just invest in too much crap, unless I actually need it or I'm actually going to use it. Like the same thing with Magic the Gathering. Like, I mean, I think about a year ago, or maybe going on almost like 2 years ago, I got rid of most of my Magic the Gathering collection. It's not that, I mean, yeah, I wasn't playing it that much, but it just becomes like this obsession and addiction. And it just like, I would just have boxes and boxes and boxes of cards. Or I'd have card binders, for deck boxes and all sorts of decks. There's like 60 card casual. I have Commander. I might have a few different all the decks I've had all over the years. I had some standard decks. It's just like, I have like a little closet in my room. I just stuff pounds of crap in it, of all the cards and the sleeves and the deck boxes and and I just have so much crap, right? And I went through, I just basically was like, I'm just going to keep one solid Commander deck. And I kept another deck. I think I kind of, not to be controversial, right? I kind of threw away some of my, at least a lot of the bulk. I think I donated a bunch of I had a bunch of rares and some foils. They're not, kind of just bulk garbage. Some of them might be useful. I also had some pretty decent cards too. I don't know. I think I donated, or I just got rid of some of this stuff. But, either way, in holiness, I put my faith in the Lord. Like, if you recycle some of the stuff, obviously, if it has money value, it's a different problem, but it's just going to go back to the earth, and something new will be made from it. And if you donate it, someone else might have a chance to use it, right? Or you can try to sell it, probably get 1/10 of the amount of value of it. But it's like being a good steward, right? A good Christian message, right? Oh yeah. By the way, I was gonna say, I was gonna play Magic the Gathering tonight. That's probably why I'm talking about it. That's why I can't make this video too long. But also, I think my phone it's getting kind of low. So either way. Okay, but. Whew. Yeah, so I just gotta breathe. Okay. But talking about Dungeons and Dragons, right? So there's the new book series. So apparently, so I was watching this video from this guy. I think it's called the Metatron. Now again, I actually do like this guy quite a bit. He has this long, beautiful hair, and I know I do respect a man who has long hair, as long as you take care of it, as long as it looks nice. Generally speaking, men aren't supposed to really have long hair, but if you take good care of yourself and you look and you behave like a decent person about it, I think it can work. It's probably more an exception, but it's possible, right? But he was talking about how, so apparently they removed the half races. So it's he made a whole video on it, and you're welcome to go watch his video. I listened to the video. I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into 100%. I know he makes a lot of anti-woke crap, but so I figured it was probably a little bit drama based, and it was, but it entertained me at the end of the day. So there's that. But yeah, basically he was talking about how they removed a bunch of the content, and they didn't want to be so offensive to people. So by trying not to offend everybody, they basically just highly pissed off their a large portion of their main core audience base. What do you call it? They call it your core. And that was extremely stupid, I feel like. They removed a bunch of their different races. It's and in ways that is kind of racist. I think they changed the name race. I think they used the word species. That's extremely insulting. So I'll lay some foundation down, right? So normally in Dungeons and Dragons, you have your vanilla core class, or not your classes, what do you call them? So you have your classes, you have your backgrounds, but you also have your races. And the different races have their own little nationalities, And most races also have like a sub race to them, or like it's like it gets split into one of 2 or 3 different points. So there's like, there's your elves. Again, like it is a fantasy world, right? Like, and Dungeons and Dragons tends to be more on the high fantasy, but it's also very subjective. Like some fantasy is on the higher spectrum, some is on the lower spectrum. But at the end of the day, fantasy is just fantasy, right? Like you got The Witcher 3. I would say The Witcher 3 is more on the lower spectrum. Then you got like, you got Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like that's probably more on like the higher spectrum. It's hard to keep track of what's really low and high fantasy, but there's a huge variety of different stuff. So it's like, you got your humans, your elves, your dwarves, maybe you got orcs. Trying to think. I mean, I think that's, you got your halflings. Also got some gnomes. Maybe I'm missing one. I think there might be 1 or 2 other of the more of like the core races that you can choose from. And there's also a whole bunch of secondary ones too. It's kind of like, you take the base vanilla game, and you like, it's like when you play a video game, you play Skyrim or something, and you can add mods to your game, or you get DLCs. It's like, and there's tons of extra stuff you can do. There's also like, there's there's like the Goliath race. Also like a Christian point of view, right? You got like, David and Goliath. Like they're basically, basically like giants. And there's angels. I think they call them like the. Okay, I might be getting this wrong. I probably can't pronounce half the stuff. I think they're either called the I cannot pronounce it. The Aasimer. Okay, the Aasimers or something like that. And then there's also the Celestial race. Celestials are kind of like angels, and they're kind of like these holy divine spirits or beings. So like you can be kind of like a half angel, half human. You can also kind of be like a half demon, half human. Again, very Christian and biblical. And I mean, I don't have to always agree with everything in the content either, right? There is good and there's evil. It's important to distinguish them one from the other. But I think those are probably more your core vanilla classes, your core vanilla races. And there's also some secondary races. Like maybe you got some kind of like a fish people. I'm not even sure what the names of how you call this stuff. I probably couldn't pronounce it. I think one of them starts with like the letter G. It's like a Guayati, I think. And there's also there's cat people. There's a whole bunch of different types of again, different species and races. But you got like different, like pretty much whatever animal you can come up with, whatever type of group you could come up with. You kind of like make them humanoid in a sense, and they're intelligent and they can think, and they have their own group of people. So they exist, right? Now again, the word species and race. Now I feel like it could be true that like a species could be like a group of animals or something, but when you refer to like a human or like a humanoid, that devalues their worth. Calling someone a species, like you're part of a race, like your racial background. You're a humanoid. You're intelligent. In holiness, like basically God created you. And Dungeons and Dragons is fantasy, right? But it's and I mean, you could argue that like in holiness God is the creator. And it gets hard. That can get a little bit gray, but you're smart. You have value. You can think. You can feel. You can believe. You can comprehend. You make choices. You're a person at the end of the day. And in Dungeons and Dragons, especially the playable characters, and even the most of the NPCs, most of the people in this world are regarded as humanoid. They have value. And sure, humanoid who has a racial background of being like an elf is a person. You have a race, and your race is gives you a sense of pride and dignity. And you can be more vanilla, or you can be something a little bit more diverse. And yeah, you can get a little more off the rails too. And it's also just, I feel like it's just insulting to be called a species. Sure, like an animal out in the fields, you can say there's different species of different types of animals, but you wouldn't say there's different types of races of different types of animals out there. No, races belong to a human being. Even in the real world, right? Like the whole meta. People who are white, there's people who are black, there's people who are brown, there's people who are, you got like more Asian, you got some, islander, you got tribal, you got some more like, you got like Native American, we got some like more albino, it's like you got different nationalities, and then each nationality, each group of people, we were considered to have a race. And it's okay. It's a sense of pride. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's insulting for Wizards of the Coast to try to change up the idea. And they also changed the idea of the half race. So they decided they're just going to remove that altogether in the new book. And now, I could be wrong, right? Now, I think that's the case. I find that to be extremely insulting. Now, I haven't thoroughly had a chance to investigate too heavily myself. So, like, normally in the game, you got the base races, right? And you take the human and you basically add, because like that's what we are. In fantasy, you add different like flavors or whatever. A human plus an elf would be like a half elf, or a human plus an orc would be like a half orc, or a human plus like I don't know human and dwarves. I don't even know if there really is a human dwarf, but in a lot of ways dwarves are kind of our humans, to be honest, in a lot of ways. But it might be like a half dwarf, or like a tiefling is like a half of one and the other, or you're like you're half of one group or another. And Dungeons and Dragons in the new book were like, we're not gonna have any kind of mixing of different like nationalities or races, and they just completely removed the half race altogether, which I find to be extremely insulting. Also, it just completely removes mass amounts of content, and it's like I don't know why you'd want to give someone less when it comes to stuff like when you're trying to build worlds and whatnot. I feel like in a lot of ways it's kind of idiotic, but I mean I understand there is the reasoning of less can equal more if done properly. Like if you're making a video game, right? You don't taking away some of the landmass or some of the areas you can explore because you want to constrict your world a little bit more, because you want to put more content in a smaller area. There is wisdom to that, right? There can be wisdom to making certain choices, but this feels idiotic. Because Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to be a role-playing game, and it's supposed to be that you can pretty much do almost whatever you want. I mean, obviously as a Christian, we have to be careful of all the options we have available. We shouldn't do certain things that we can, but at least we should be wise. But for them to remove like a massive aspect of the game, that is insulting. Okay, I feel like I went on a little bit more of a tangent there. Okay, so let me try to go back. Let me try to go back a little bit more to whatever I was supposed to be talking about here. So that's one major area. I feel like that's a pretty big red flag. Now, I'm not going to say that you shouldn't buy or invest in those books or anything. You can still have a great time. That's one major thing. And they did do some tweaks and variations to some of the stuff. There might be a few other things out there. It doesn't really feel like these book series. Honestly, I don't think they're really even necessary. It's like it's not 6E. It's just some off-brand D&D, like, or just some new version of D&D. I don't even think you need to have to buy them. If you just have stupid money, like, go ahead, right? But unless they're making like adventures or certain special new content for them. Honestly, I feel like you can just be fine with 5th edition. Plus, there's all the old editions, too. And this one doesn't really offer that much exceeding value compared to the, to the other stuff. So, I would honestly just say, probably just save your money. Just buy some, or just keep the old books you have, or if your team has some old books, Yeah, I feel like 5th edition is just honestly it's fine. And you can always just homebrew a little bit. You can like kind of mod or homebrew some of your content. It's not that big of a deal. You look this one, it's slightly tweaked, slightly modified version of the old books. I can't see there's that much value. No, I mean there's pretty pictures to look at and whatever, but I don't know. I don't feel like there's really no need, no reason. And honestly, at this point, I don't even know what a 6E would even really offer for the Dungeons and Dragons group. Like, I understand that would therefore make, when you play in the Adventures League or something, like they have to play by the home rules or whatever. But and I know they've been messing around with a bunch of different Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I think they made one called like D&D Beyond at one point. I think that kind of flopped. But I think they eventually made a little like a companion app for that you can use that for like a digital version of making your character. So that kind of initially it just kind of was garbage, but it did something came from it. I think they also made another game at one point. It was called like I think it was supposed to be called like D&D 1 or something like that. It was like they had some special variations of some rules. I think eventually that kind of just flopped and just kind of died too. People just weren't interested in it. And they've tried to do some other stuff, but again, like without having the core, if you don't have like the core rules, or you don't have the official licensings, or you don't have the big numbers or resources to back you up, I feel like it's probably doomed to fail. And like Wizards of the Coast has also had a lot of controversies. I think they tried to do they pulled some shenanigans. I feel like it was almost last year at this point, where they were gonna try to like increase the amount of money that you had to pay them to it was like a 10%, like it was like some big taxation thing, where like not taxation, but like it's like Wizards of the Coast controls all the different media and like who gets to enjoy or not enjoy, and they started increasing the prices, or they made it more difficult for certain groups, or I think it was like I think it was a combination of that, but it's also about like if you wanted to make like modules, or you wanted to buy and sell this stuff, they put these little tariffs or these little expenses out there, and it just really, really pissed the communities off. So, especially if you're someone who makes a profit off of it, or whatever. Like say you make your own like special independent group, you have to pay Wizards of the Coast like 25% of your profits, and these people got so mad. And like, now I mean I think it's deserved at the same time, to be real. But so I think a bunch of people stopped investing in Dungeons and Dragons, and that was a big wake-up call to a lot of people. So I don't think they've never really recovered from that. A lot of people started going and investing in I think it's called like Paizo. They make like a Pathfinder, and they started investing in, I think, a bunch of other stuff. So this really hurt their brand name, but they're kind of greedy snobs at the same time, and maybe they're a little bit overinflated. And some of these people, they have too much power and too much control and too much nice things, and most of them never really had to work for it in the first place. Now I don't blame somebody. If I had a cushy 6-7 figure job, I had to do nothing for it, and I got to just be like a dick all the time, honestly, I probably would take it too. But it's like they didn't make Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of these people, they just bought someone else's property, or they inherited the position or something. So they don't really understand. They don't have like a true understanding. I mean, obviously some people do, but so there's this big issue, right? Like a little bit of like hubris. So what else could I say about this? Again, And also there are just so many different variations of Dungeons and Dragons. So like, there's the and they have all the old systems. They have like what they call them like AD, like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and they call them like kind of using some even some like biblical names or whatever, like AD1, and they have like second edition and third, and they have like a 3.5, and it's hard to keep track of all the little dots and points they have in them. And they have like maybe the fourth edition. I think they made like a Pathfinder, like a 4.5. They made the fifth edition. There's so many different editions out there, and there's so many spin-offs of all this stuff, and that's just for the fantasy little niche, right? And there's like 10 other systems out there. There's like the Star Wars one. That one was pretty popular. I mean, I actually did like that one quite a bit. And they had like oh man, I can't even keep track of all of them. There's just so many out there. You could probably just think of any IP you like. There's probably one out there made. Some of them are more popular, some of them are less popular. And there's all the different video game variations, and it's just there's so many different like, what do you call it? Like if you go on the internet or something, you just want to look up I think they call them like homebrew rules. So, and like in this book again, like okay, so going back to this series just isn't necessary. But I will say it is fun. Like I do enjoy buying something new, or I do enjoy just looking at all the pretty pictures and just enjoying some of the new options. And sometimes it is nice to just have some variety, but like if you have stupid money, it can be enjoyable, right? There's a lot of hobbies and things you can do in your hobbies if you just have dumb amounts of money. That it's not necessary, but it is a lot of fun. But again, like okay, so like I try to put something like a Christian message in this too, though. But I do think as a person of the faith, all these different options do increase your ability to enjoy these kind of games and stuff, because there's so many options out there that where am I even trying to go with this, right? Like there's just so many different options and so many different groups out there that like if you're looking for a group, you can find one, and you can probably find your own little niche, and like you can put your own Christian spin on it. It's hard to find Christian groups to play these stuff with. I mean, you probably just gonna have to be a Christian and then just play your game. It's like, I mean, I get it. It's offensive to somebody, but like, it's just honestly, it doesn't really matter who you are, right? You could be an atheist and you go into this world. An atheist could play as like a priest, and like a Christian could play as like an atheist. It's like you kind of leave some of your personal, real world scenarios aside when you go to play the game. But you can still choose to find some kind of Christian values or meaning behind it too. And sometimes it's like, in holiness, you just seek to glorify God with what you do. So it's like, whether it's direct or indirect, it's like you don't always have to push a message. It's not always necessary. Like, you just having a good time and like behaving like a decent person in the real world, or just trying to do the highest quality you can. In holiness, that glorifies God, and I believe it pleases Him. When you're obedient and you follow His will, I mean, it pleases Him, right? And I think He enjoys you having a good experience, like a healthy fun, right? Like being a demonic monster and harming people or someone. Yeah, you might think that's fun, but that's malicious. But just being like a decent person. And it's like, again, you don't have to push a narrative and agenda either. And like I do, honestly speaking, I do feel like Christians can enjoy a lot of this stuff, because I mean, like it's not like this. Like most of this stuff was never really made with a religious intent, and a lot of this stuff was never made. A lot of this stuff was never designed initially for having It never was designed with any kind of narrative and agenda whatsoever made with it. It was just, I feel like it was just designed to have fun. A place where like nerdy people could just get together once a week or so and just play some kind of a fun game. It's like, a lot of it's very subjective. And it's kind of like, like you get out of it what you like, kind of what you put into it, and like you can make whatever you want. And like, I'm sure I've said many things in the past about D&D. I mean, like, again, like, I do feel like you should use discernment, and some of the stuff, it can be dangerous. But like, again, like, you got to do something with your life. Because it is what it is. But like, you can be smart, right? You can be smart with what you do too. So, yeah, I guess I would say, just try to have fun, and try to find other people who wanna, try to find people who, who treat you with a level of respect, and who also respect the rules and respect, the world building and the lore of these types of series. And like, I feel like if you're gonna have a set of standards for the stuff, for a group you're gonna play with or be in, you gotta have some kind of leniency also. Demanding and expecting a 10 out of 10 perfect group that meets all of your like crazed wild expectations for all the stuff you want, it's probably not gonna happen. There's gonna be some failings and some falling marks down. So I feel like, having like a healthy expectations of what kind of group you want to join is important. Like kind of like being a little more humble and bringing your expectations down a bit. I mean, you can have expectations. Like, again, like, so what would be some examples for this? Like, if somebody's sitting there chewing like gum with their mouth open, like they're cracking their chewing gum, right? Like, I mean, again, I would go ballistic. I hate that kind of crap, right? I think a lot of people hate that kind of stuff. Someone's sitting there just being like, just freaking hateful the entire time. Yeah, I feel like, that's an expectation that you don't want to be tortured while you want to experience what you're doing, right? It takes away all the immersion, all the enjoyment, and you feel like you just want to hurt people. You go into rage mode. That's not healthy, right? It's like an expectation that people being obnoxious, or like people sitting there on their phone, or like the game master sitting there, or like the game master doesn't prepare for the campaign whatsoever. He doesn't make any kind of notes, doesn't build the characters, doesn't do any kind of preparation, or maybe the game master doesn't enforce any kind of like, meta rules. And that should be like kind of like a red flag, right? Or if people don't care about what they're doing or what they're making, I feel like that's kind of like a red flag. There's a lot of things you gotta be careful with, right? But like, again, like, you can also just lower your standards a little bit too, and not demand absolute perfection. Like, maybe your game master isn't the best at like role playing the characters or something, and it is what it is, right? Or maybe the game doesn't always last as long as you'd want, or it could be some small little thing here or there. Maybe you got one bothersome or kind of a bad player at the table, or the player, I don't know, it could be some like some small bad quirk. It doesn't have to be like super egregious or anything, but maybe you gotta lower your standards a little bit, or you just gotta be willing to just let a couple of small errors here and there, because otherwise you're not gonna find a group you can play in. Or like, if you demand that the group has to meet your moral qualifications for every single thing, like, you want to be a Christian, but not only do you want to be a Christian, you also demand that like everybody has to be like ultra lawful good to the absolute maximum, and you don't want any kind of like you try to control all the characters or whatever, or the stories, and like you demand all these different things because they have to meet your absolute worldview no matter what. And it's like, you probably gotta you gotta temper your expectations a little bit, because otherwise, if you're a Christian and you want to play these games, or you're just any person, right, you might have trouble finding a group or staying in a group yourself, because there's not always an infinite amount of groups out there, right? Now, maybe in your area, I don't know, wherever you might live, maybe there's a game store you can play at, maybe you can find a friend's house, you can find a group, right? There might be somewhere between 10 to 20 groups out there, hypothetically, and sometimes groups disband, and sometimes groups, there's new groups that form, and sometimes different groups, they take in new players or whatever, right? But let's say you have like 10 groups potentially hypothetically available to you. Or you'd have to go through massive channels or effort to somehow find a group. You don't want to have like extraordinarily high standards either. Because like you might not get in a group. Or you get in a group, they might hate you. Like if you've been in a group for like, 6 months or something, and you have some personal issue, they're probably going to have to comply with some small thing. Because at that point, you're so solidified, in the group. But if you've been in a group for like 2 weeks, they're probably gonna like be very hateful towards you, or they'll look for a reason to try to get rid of you or something, right? So it's like, or again, you're not gonna have very much fun, and like there's gonna be lots of problems, or people are gonna be complaining, or you're gonna be complaining, and all the people are gonna be arguing, right? So again, I would say you should lower your expectations for a Dungeons and Dragons group. You're not going to get to play one or play in the game. You won't get the story out of it. You won't get anything from it. I'm not saying you have to throw your morals away or throw your values away, but just keep this in mind when you want to have fun, right? Okay. So let's try to. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Come put it to an end here. So I guess some of the things I went over was again like the new Dungeons and Dragons book came out. It has some controversial aspects to it. It's kind of a waste of money in my opinion, but it could be fun. As a Christian, I do feel like you can't play this game. And again, just temper your expectations a little bit. I would say, try to have a fun mentality. Again, clean, fun mentality, right? Okay, so in the comments section below, let me know what your thoughts are about this. And again, do you play Dungeons and Dragons as a Christian? And do you even think that it's okay for a person of the faith to play this game? Again, I personally, I think it's fine. But maybe you disagree with me, it's okay, right? Try to keep the comments a little more friendly, but let me know what your thoughts are. And yeah, I guess what you call it. Thanks for watching. Happy gaming. God is good.